it's like to grow up in a place where you feel trapped and alone, where it's safer to be silent than to be yourself. I remember because I was born and raised in the same place as CJ, Oil City, a small town with small town values in the hills of western Pennsylvania. I was the youngest in a big Irish Catholic family. Mom was a nurse, and Dad was custodian in the Catholic school we all attended. We didn't have much money, but life was good and I didn't have a care in the world. As I got older, I started to feel a little different. By the time I was a teen, I realized I was gay. Unlike CJ, I was too afraid to let anyone know, so I kept silent and managed to get by. As soon as I graduated high school, I got out of town. I went off to college, joined the Peace Corps, and found myself identifying with others who had been silenced. I ended up in Washington, D.C. I met Dean playing pickup basketball. We got along right from the start, and before long we fell in love and got married. That's when I decided to do what I wish I could have done a long time ago. Be open about who I was back in my hometown. I put our wedding announcement in Oil City's paper, the Derrick. It didn't take long for the letters to start pouring in.
Editor, common sense tells us marriage is between a man and a woman.
I am shaking with anger as I write this.
I was sick to
Today
my
you
stomach
crossed the
when someone
line
read
with
the
the
announcement
announcement
of
of the Wilson
marriage in the
Hamer
newspaper.
Homosexuality is immoral. It would be better for you not to have been born. Think about that. The reactions to my wedding announcement didn't really surprise me. Then, I got a letter I didn't expect. Dear Mr. Wilson, I searched for your address in Washington, D.C. after I saw your wedding announcement in the paper. I'm the mother of a 16-year-old boy who is being treated unjustly because he is gay. I was told you were born and raised in Oil City, so I feel a connection to you. Last night, my son CJ cried for 3 hours after being abused in public because of being gay. I'm so afraid for him. I don't know where else to turn. Please help if you can. Sincerely, Kathy Springer. Kathy's letter made me realize that things hadn't changed that much in Oil City. Here it was, 25 years after my own fear of being found out forced me to keep quiet, and kids like CJ still had to live in silence. I wanted to go back to Oil City, to meet CJ and Kathy, and to help document their story. I asked Dean to grab the camera.
On my pillow, I count friends I used to know. I've got 7 hours and 15 miles to go. Instead, I need to be back home. This was my school. Every day when the bus stopped and I walked to that door, to my locker, became 8 hours of pure hell. What went on in there? Kids would come by, hit me with my locker, I'd fall on the ground, my books would fly everywhere. I was slammed into lockers, hit with stuff, being yelled faggot. Yep. This hall was always lovely. I'd have to walk through a crowd of kids, and there would always definitely be some tripping going on, or shoving or pushing. Grab my backpack and yanking me, and stupid stuff.
What did you feel inside when that kind of stuff happened?
Terrified. Nobody cared. None of the teachers cared, none of the administrators cared. Nobody always gave a deaf ear and a blind eye. They watch everything. Never say a word.
I wanted to understand why my hometown was still so hostile to kids like CJ. It seemed like talking with people who denounced our wedding announcement in the paper would be a logical place to start. Only one couple agreed to be interviewed. Pastor Mark Miklos and his wife Diana.
If I grant two men the right to get married, what's wrong with incest or polygamy, or and it would just expand. And I think at times we've seen that happen.
In plumbing, there's fittings, and they're called male and female fittings. And you could probably plumb a house with all male fittings, but it seems like the design is for male and female, not for two lives to be together.
It was hard to listen to what the Mikloses were saying, but the fact that they invited us to their home and we were talking seemed like an opening. When I asked them why they had taken the trouble to write about our wedding announcement, they told me that their church had received an alert that asked members to write in protest. It was sent by the Pennsylvania arm of the American Family Association, a conservative values organization based in Mississippi. How did they key in on our little wedding announcement so fast? It turns out that the AFA's chapter president, Diane Granley, lives right there in the area and has a program on a local radio station.
Welcome to American Family Focus on Pennsylvania Issues, a weekly program which discusses some of the happenings that are of concern to the family and those who hold traditional values in Pennsylvania. And now your host, Diane Granley, State Director of American Family Association of Pennsylvania. The question comes down to, should a lifestyle that will result in the destruction of traditional marriage and the natural family, not even mentioning the physical, mental, and psychological dangers to those involved in this lifestyle, be normalized and codified into the laws of the land? Those involved in this lifestyle are sinners, and they need to accept the saving grace of Jesus Christ, just like you and me.
Back when I was growing up, people didn't talk about lifestyle so openly. And in my house, sexuality or being gay wasn't discussed at all. Even though right on our street, just 2 doors down from our house, we had a neighbor with a rainbow flag on her door.
I've lived in this community since I was 17 years old, and I've always been open. I mean, I never wore my sexuality on a sleeve, but people always knew who I was. Nobody was ever negative to me, except one occasion. I was hired at this firm, then I worked there about 6 months, and then the president of the company, after the Christmas party, and I took my partner, came in a few days later and fired me. Said he couldn't have the likes of somebody like me working for the company.
Be good, you guys.
This is my house, where my stepdad sells smelly birds. Chuckers, quails, and feathers. Probably snakes. Yes, snakes.
Okay, the smell is a little too much, okay? It's a little too real.
That is not a place for gigs. First day we came back from Christmas vacation. this kid, Richie, who everybody's known was gay since, like, the day he was born, came back to school. And I went to my history class, last period of the day, and some kid stood up and came over to him because he was standing by the door because he didn't have a seat or anything yet. And some kid was like, "Hey, are you a faggot?" And I stood up and I got in his face and I was like, "Why do you gotta call him that? What did he do to you? He's just standing there, hasn't said a word to anybody. Leave him alone." And he's like, "What, so you a hard-ass homo then?" He's like, "You think you can take me?" And I was like, "Dude, I might be a faggot, but I'm more of a man than you be." And he's like, "So you're admitting it?" And I was like, "I am admitting that if you say another word to me like that again, I am gonna take your teeth out."
There was a lot he didn't even tell me, at first, because he'd come home and he'd be real quiet and he'd go to his room and he wouldn't come out for hours. I said, CJ, there's nothing you could possibly be in this world that would ever make me stop loving you. So then finally one day he says, "I'm tired of denying who I am, and I'm tired of the abuse and the harassment that gays take, and I'm just coming out with it. I don't care."
CJ told me he wanted to make videos himself, so we gave him a camera and helped him get started by filming one of his friends.
And if you want to close up, you go like that. So whatever, and if you want to far away, you go like that.
Yeah.
So, you try to film something. That's awesome.
I was hoping CJ would use his camera to show what life was like for him as a gay teen. For practice, I asked him to join us at a concert I helped organize featuring my friend Namali Brennan.
To be here.
Namali is a transgender musician from a small town who lives her life very openly. I thought she might be an inspiration for folks in Oil City. There wasn't a big crowd, but they seemed to connect with Namali and her music.
And I received some gifts. I received some little cruets of crude oil. I thought it was salad dressing. It's oil, not oil and vinegar. Baby mama, when you gonna find me? Baby mama, when you gonna take me home?
Oil City used to be a very different kind of place. Back in 1859, when Colonel Edwin Drake drilled the first oil well in the United States there, it became a boomtown, full of new people and fresh ideas. The growth and prosperity lasted for another 100 years, as Oil City became a refining and industrial center, and a melting pot for immigrants from all over Europe. There was a lot of money in Oil City, and people used it to build imposing banks, public libraries, tall-spired churches of all denominations, and elegant Victorian houses. But by the time I came along, the big refineries and manufacturing plants had all shut down, and jobs and people were moving out. The population dropped by half. It became the sort of Rust Belt town that time seemed to be leaving behind, where things didn't change much, and outsiders were viewed with suspicion. Like many small towns, Oil City is trying to make a comeback. It still has its history and plenty of small-town charm, but it's not clear if that will be enough. The biggest event of the year in Oil City is the Oil Heritage Parade. Most people come out to watch their kids march or their friends ride around on silly floats, even in the pouring rain. So I wasn't expecting to see an anti-gay marriage protest led by none other than Diane Granley of the American Family Association. She'd already refused several requests to be formally interviewed, so I tried a more direct approach. Hey, Diane. How are you? Hey.
I'm not going to be your documentary.
Yeah, we just wanted to know why you're so actively seeking to discriminate against gay and lesbian people.
We talked about it on the phone.
Well, why do you think that they don't deserve to live freely in society as you do?
They have every right to live freely, and they are living freely in society. I would like to know why you encourage children to participate in a dangerous lifestyle.
How are you doing? Hey, nice to see you. Good seeing you.
They've been homosexuals throughout society, but they have not attempted to redefine marriage and family as they are today.
Everything else with gay people is okay, right? They can teach.
If they have a job and they're doing their job, they have every right to have that job.
Tell people that they're gay when they're asked.
No. That's promoting the lifestyle.
Things had become increasingly bad at CJ's high school. When he finally complained about the abuse he was receiving, the assistant principal blamed him for the trouble and called the state police. Kathy decided to take CJ out of school and go to the school board for answers.
Oh, my name's... I'm sorry. My name's Kathy Springer. Have you implemented or are you going to implement a change into how discrimination is handled in the school district? I recently had to pull my son out because of discrimination and how it was handled by you. Is there a better way of handling things? I just, as a taxpayer, wanted to know if, should I decide to send my son back, are we going to be any change with that?
Every discussion taking place, and there have been issues myself,
And it's like, oh God, give her 5 minutes and get her out of here. I really don't see that they seen us as a threat or anything. We were just an annoyance.
Shortly after Kathy's appearance, the school board did propose a plan for inclusive anti-discrimination training. But there was suddenly an unusual amount of opposition from the community, especially from an African-American pastor who wanted the training to focus only on race and not even mention sexual orientation. A Derrick reporter discovered the reason for the racial outcry. Diane Granley had sent out another action alert. This one accused the school district of trying to hijack civil rights to promote homosexuality. The diversity training never happened. I have to admit, in this environment, it was a clever strategy to pit one minority group against another. I'll tell you what we're doing. We got married a couple years ago. We put our wedding announcement in the paper. And there's like controversy or whatever.
I got beat up about a month ago just because I never thought people were racist or anything. I'm Arab. And this girl wouldn't stop talking crap, and I FaceTime lunch, and she calmed me right down. It was blood all over for me. I didn't have a chance.
This place is rough. If you are not a man with weight and who likes to do the missionary position, it's over. Although gay people are everywhere, we're not always visible. Roxanne and some of her friends wanted to change that in Oil City. They put together a volunteer group to participate in community activities like town cleanup day. Everybody was driving by, thinks
Just being out in the community doing something was perfect. A nasty day, but I did it anyway.
Hey, Greg, can you say a little bit about what you're doing today? Cleanup Day was supposed to be a community-wide event, but we only saw one other volunteer who wasn't part of Roxanne's group. So I asked her, if there were a visible gay and lesbian group in Oil City, would anyone in the community object?
I guess you're going to have radicals everywhere, and they'll find a way to articulate what bothers them. But how can you target people who are doing something good? You know?
Me? Yeah.
Oh no. CJ, is there anything on there you don't want me to say?
Just someone. Okay.
How do you feel as a parent that the cyber school is the option that you feel
That I had to turn to?
Yeah.
I don't like the idea. Now, my son, I wanted him to be able to be involved with all the other school activities, the camaraderie, you know, everything, the prom, the whole schmear, you know? And I feel that he was just, he doesn't have that interaction that I think he needs.
Do you know if there's any same-sex couples that are connected? Would you guys have an issue with that? You would play a game that wouldn't be... We're not...
You know, one thing about living in a small town is that the gene pool is so limited. You know, trying to meet somebody is really hard.
So who's this special lady that's in your life?
Her name is Lee. Where's she at?
Why don't we forget how excited you are? Oh, that's...
Well, the cool part about it is everybody's saying the same thing about me. People asking me what in the world's going on because I'm running around smiling a lot. You know, all of a sudden I've been telling people I have a family now.
In some ways, she's the total opposite of me. You know, I can be aggressive and antagonistic, and she's just kind of quiet and the peacemaker, and she's just calm. And she's very gifted. She's great with people. She is the best thing that ever happened to me. with George Washington on Night Valley Forge. Why do the soldiers freeze here like they do? He said men will suffer fighting, even though what is right, even though they know they're only passing through. Passing through, passing through. Sometimes happy, sometimes blue. And then I ran into you. I've something done now. I just wanna see
Since I was told I could do a PowerPoint on anything I wanted to do that interested me, I chose something that I know a lot about, which is the struggle of GLBT, gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people in our country. 7 years ago, a Wyoming young man named Matthew Shepard, a 21-year-old college student, was taken out into the desert and was savagely beaten to death for being an openly gay man. Here's a picture that says, "What part of love don't you understand?"
CJ was doing a project on discrimination for one of his cyber school classes. When he asked me where he could find information about the question of what makes people gay, I told him he might want to interview a real expert. I'm Dr. Dean Hamler. I work at the National Institutes of Health, and I've been working on the genetics of human personalities in the last 10 years.
Did you go through a lot of controversy when you first came out with the thought that, oh, I'm gonna, look for why gay people are that way?
When I decided to study sexual orientation, the reaction from most of my scientific colleagues was, what are you doing? No one's ever done that before. Is that really scientific? And of course, as they thought about it a little bit, they said, actually, that's a really important problem. You should study that. Almost every aspect of personality has a strong genetic basis. Being gay is just one of those. It just happens to be more controversial than most of the other ones.
Alright, well, if it's only a gene that can be destroyed, why can't we just destroy it and just be straight?
Because it's not just a gene, it's also what happens in your brain, your pattern of thoughts, of feelings, and emotions that develop over your entire life. So even though that may have started out as no more than a few genes and a few cells in your brain, it is now part of who you are. So changing your orientation will be the same as changing everything about you, which nobody can do and which nobody should be forced to do.
Alright, is it okay if I use your comments and you and your partner's faces in this video?
Yes, that would be fun.
Good job. Okay.
I wasn't sure if we'd hear again from the folks who condemned our wedding announcement in the paper. But when Pastor Miklos called to invite us to lunch with his family, I thought I'd see where it would lead. When you contacted me, or I contacted you, or however, I carved one of the things that I prayed was that you would see Christ in us.
Why do I still see my life through a Christian framework? That's just not how it was. In other words,
No, so
yeah.
Can we at some point get to a point where we respect God and respect each other?
Well, no. I mean, I can respect your Christian beliefs, but if some of those beliefs are aimed at limiting other people's full participation in society, no, I can't respect that. I have to struggle against that. I can respect the Mark Nicholas that I know in hopes that he reaches a higher point of enlightenment. And that I would be his friend through that process. Yeah.
What was your first thought when I first came out?
My first reaction was probably shocked,
You know,
just because,
you think I was putting on a front?
I just didn't really think you'd come out.
Laura,
Yes.
your turn.
That's a good question.
How did you feel when Richie first came out?
I was happy.
And I was happy for you too, because you finally came out. Because, if you're gay, you've always been gay, but you finally came out. So, I was just happy for you.
I could never deny who I am. Couldn't deny it. I learned to find ways around it, but people kept directing the question, are you gay, to my face. I didn't know what to say, but I couldn't deny who I was, so I ended up saying that, you know what, yeah, so what's it in? What is it to you? It's a big deal. And I guess it was a big deal to everybody. I know they were ridiculed because at that day everybody began to hate me. I was no longer anybody that anyone liked. Everybody hated some gay girls.
It's actually rather phenomenal and sometimes a little scary that so much has happened in such a short amount of time.
Roxanne and Linda had decided to buy and renovate the Latonia, a historic theater that had seen better days. They wanted to help revitalize downtown Oil City by creating a space for special events.
I came in for a massage one day. My massage therapist said, the original chandelier is here. You gotta go see it. So she loaned me this tiny little itty bitty flashlight, and I snuck up, and the door was unlocked, and the room was dark, and I came in, and my little heart just went pitter patter. I could not believe something like that was here in Oil City. It just seemed almost criminal to me that it was, just sitting. The building wasn't even really on the market. We just called the guy and said, how much do you want for it? And he told us, and we said, okay, let's sign papers, and we just kind of went from there.
Once it's ready, there's gotta be a grand opening. I don't think that chandelier has been lit up in probably 50 years.
92 Burgundy Carson. Did you look at all the cars, or was this, just gonna came up? Yeah, look, I got a couple grand to throw in a nice fancy schmancy car. $150. That was it. I wasn't even into the 200. Stuff to get a new exhaust, battery, tires, title transfer, my license, and then I won it. I don't think I'll probably ever be able to walk down to the streets of anywhere around here. I used to have a reputation and stuff. That's badass and all this stuff. But right now my life consists of being around my animals in my garage with my money. What am I thinking about? Nothing really. Eventually, once in a while, I'm wondering if this thing will actually release this garage.
After CJ told me that he was sticking close to home to avoid being hassled, I didn't see him for a while. His high school's homecoming was his first time out of the house in months.
I can see you.
He's walking by this guy.
What's up, dude? How you doing? What's going on? So how you been?
Pretty peachy.
Yeah? Place good? I like your earrings.
Keep on.
How'd you guys go? They didn't want to be on camera, huh?
I don't know, they're street.
It was great to see CJ out of the house, but I didn't want to make him nervous around his friends. I told him I'd catch up with him later.
When I was leaving the game, there was a whole group of skater kids outside. Like, are you stuck in? I'm like, I ain't a faggot. What's you talking about? I'm like, oh, okay. And they just watched me walk away and stuff, and I was like, okay.
You know, once you kind of
I mean, it's hard to, like,
Go back in?
yeah.
Noticed. Yeah. I actually had people talk to me on Friday. I hasn't happened since last year.
You would notice a lot of people came up and kind of greeted you and gave you a hug and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's because they think you're not
Cover it up. At least I get away from here.
You shouldn't have to live in denial, you know? But I know there's been times where he wished he would have just kept his mouth shut and nobody would know, and
Oh, every time I go into public, I wish something ever happened in my mouth. Every single day. It's hell. It's not like DC or New York where everybody's normal. I get threatened to get killed. That ain't fun. I'm here tonight to say that I'm deeply concerned about the charges of harassment, violence, and discrimination that have roiled the Franklin School District for the past year and a half. Gay students and students of color at the high school have been the primary targets of these activities. Their ability to speak for themselves is greatly hampered by fears of backlash if they do so publicly. Death threats have been issued against students in the school district, and it just pains me that no action has actually been taken. So thank you for accepting these comments into the public record. I appreciate it, and I look forward to your response.
It was obvious that the school board wasn't concerned about CJ or any gay student. But the problem wasn't just with the school.
It can happen to your town. AFA presents a look at how a handful of homosexual activists changed the very moral fiber of the city.
They are taking over. This video is being promoted by a local Christian radio station to counter increasingly visible gay people in Oil City.
Learn the strategies used by gay activists and don't let this happen to your city.
If it's not happening in your town, get ready because it is going to happen.
Purchase your copy or a 5-pack to share with others today and spread the news. They're coming to your town.
Is that too long? No, that's probably okay. Yeah. That's my chainsaw. Mine disappeared. I don't know where mine went.
You each have your own chainsaw?
I used to.
Whose is bigger?
Gas pump powered. Hers would be bigger. I bet I cut more wood than she has though.
Linda and Roxanne were trying to go about their business, but when they saw the AFA video accusing people like them of trying to take over the town, Linda came up with a poetic response.
Why do you suppose there are empty storefronts? They're choking our town. Why do you suppose there's a brain drain? They're choking our town. Why do you suppose there is no unique art? They're choking our town. It's time for a change.
Stop choking our town.
Another case of anti-gay discrimination had taken place several years earlier in Titusville, a town just up the road from Oil City. It involved a student named Tim Dale. I thought he and his family might be able to help Kathy and CJ figure out how to get their school district to take them more seriously.
The whole thing started from me standing up for one kid. And no one ever once said a word to anybody. They just stood there, my best friends, people that I've known since I was this big. They just rolled their eyes.
You call them your friends, you trust them, and then all of a sudden they turn on you. I've been there. What really irritates me is the fact that I used to go out of my way to actually cause bodily harm to gay people. Okay? We used to use it like a sport, you know? I mean, it was stupid. And then when you came out of the closet and told me that you were gay, I thought, oh no, you can't be. And I get to thinking, that gay kid's yours. You gonna disown him because of his sexual orientation? Or are you gonna love him for who he is inside? That's how I am. I'm gonna love him for who he is inside. Alright? And I'll tell you what, you try to shed 40 years of hatred overnight. It's just not done. It's something you gotta learn how to live with, deal with, and you gotta be sincere. I mean, he's my kid. I'm not gonna turn my back on him. I will never turn my back on him. I get it. See you later. Thanks.
I never thought that would happen.
It seemed like Kathy really perked up when Diane told her that their lawsuit had forced the school district to implement diversity training that included sexual orientation.
We were the first people in all these years to stand up to our school system. And it was because what they were doing was wrong.
It breaks my heart. I mean, I could just cry that there are other kids out there going through similar situations. None of this should ever happen. I don't know that I'll change the world, but if I can even just educate a few people, like, look, they weren't put on this earth to be tortured like this.
We're getting ready for the grand opening, and all of a sudden, Diane Granley sent out a letter warning everyone about how dangerous we are, and we have this homosexual agenda, and her brother goes to work with a guy whose minister stood right in the pulpit and said to boycott the Latonian.
Where's that coming from?
Diane Granley. She started an all-in-all-out campaign against us.
And she's saying that people don't do business with them.
Yes.
Because it's run by a lesbian couple.
Right. Yes. I just wanted to have a business. If all this city wants is churches, then what do they need an Art Deco theater for?
There's something that's going on in our Senate and House of Representatives pretty much as we speak right now. It's a hate crimes bill. It's pretty much saying that if I, as a pastor, would share from the pulpit the Word of God about homosexuality, someone in my congregation took that, did something against an individual who is a homosexual, I could be prosecuted as well for sharing the Word of God from the pulpit. This is information that Diane Granley forwarded in emails out as well. Father God, you're a mighty God. You created this world. We thank you for your love that shows no discrimination against anybody. And Lord, you know these debates that are going on in the House and in the Senate. You can supernaturally reach down there and stop those men and women from voting yes on this bill today. And so, Father God, we just pray that this bill will be defeated somewhere, somehow, Lord. And we pray this in Jesus' name.
We as Christians, we don't have to do this always. I could have been I've had feelings.
You had feelings of attraction to it?
I had feelings, yes, but I knew they were wrong before I ever even read the Bible. You know, the scriptures say, I've got to have some rules to live by.
As the AFA and their followers were trying to use scriptural rules and prayer to limit legal protections for gay people, the state of Pennsylvania was considering expanding its anti-discrimination law to include sexual orientation. Kathy was invited to tell her story about discrimination in CJ's school at a public hearing.
I'm not a public speaker, and I don't know what I'd say. I need to hear how it's going, and
I printed out a copy of the law so we can look
okay, good. Yeah, that would be good.
where you see the underline.
Mm-hmm.
It's trying to add sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression.
You know, I don't understand where they even get off not including gay and lesbian. Let's get, our heads out of our asses here.
On June 13th, a homosexual special rights bill was introduced in Harrisburg. This is Diane Granley with the American Family Association of Pennsylvania with a call to action. Advocates for the passage of these bills deny they are special rights bills. But in what other situation is a law specifically written to include a group of people simply because of the sexual activity in which they engage? They have never been required to sit in the back of the bus or drink from designated water fountains. They've never been considered less than human as African Americans once were. Homosexual activists are trying to hijack the civil rights movement by pulling the victim card and trying to seek the normalization of their destructive lifestyle.
People like Diane are using misinformation to stir up irrational fears to kind of push people back into the closet. It's not going to happen. But when they stir up that fear, that's what creates the problems. That's what puts people like CJ at risk.
At risk, okay.
Because those messages go out there and says, oh, those are the people we're supposed to hate. You know, can you imagine? I mean, just seeing somebody at a party and saying, oh, that's the faggot. Let's go, punch him, literally knock him out.
Can I imagine that?
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine that. I mean, I was that type of a person at one time. That may be shocking to you, but in my journey in life, I'm no longer like that. And a big part of that is my Christianity, my faith in Christ. I truly believe that Jesus Christ has changed my character so that I don't do that, nor do I want to do those things anymore. I mean, those are wrong. It's wrong to do that. It's wrong to violate anybody. I became a different person.
Do you think there will come a time, though, when we don't disagree about the place that gay, lesbian, bisexual, trans people have in the world?
Maybe aspects of it. I don't know. I'd have to. That would be a big change for me.
My interactions with Pastor Miklos were odd. Ever since the wedding announcement, I felt like I had been battling against people who use religion to deny gay people basic rights and visibility. Pastor Miklos was open to looking at things in a different way. I never thought I'd become friends with someone who didn't view me as his equal. But his willingness to examine his own beliefs was helping me to see that not all religious people fell into the box that I often put them in.
Hi, Diane, how are you? I want to introduce you to Kathy Springer and CJ. They're from Venango County.
Hi. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
CJ is the young boy who was in Franklin High School who was experiencing harassment and discrimination.
Okay, the one that's on your video?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you
I
think
need
of
to get
that?
in here. I need to get in here for the meetings.
Civil rights protections have long been fought for by disenfranchised groups of people. African Americans led the fight for civil rights, seeking the right to vote and to no longer be required to sit at the back of the bus. But a person's skin color or national origin is unchanging.
Again, Granley was trying to use race as a wedge to divide. But this time she was dealing with legislators who were experienced in civil rights law. I was hoping they'd be more open to Kathy's testimony.
I'm sorry, I'm already nervous. I'm not a public speaker. At this time, I'd like to tell you about my son, C.J. Bells. At the time, he was 15 years old and attended a public school in Venango County. There was an incident on a school bus one day. He was on a field trip. There were teachers monitoring this whole trip. Kids were throwing things at him, calling him faggot, queer, gay, asking if he wanted to perform sex acts on them. The teachers just turned their head and acted like it never happened. We've had our house threatened to be burned down. We've gotten phone calls by these boys saying, "We want to see what color a faggot bleeds." He was vulnerable, he was scared, he didn't want to go to school, his grades were dropping. He was suicidal. I just have one more thing to say. I hope it never comes to your family where one of your children are tortured for being who they are. Thank you.
Sometimes black people have a problem with people who are different comparing their experiences with the black experience. Because of your experience, you will be able to help other young people. You can make it to war. If this doesn't happen, God is your Lord. Be who you are, no matter what. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you how you respond to the very personal testimonies of CJ.
Like I said at the beginning of my testimony, I was on discrimination. And Franklin School District should not have done to him what they permitted to do.
So will you join us in fighting discrimination against gay and lesbian people in
We're not going to join.
Why not?
No. Because of the roads that will open.
Kathy's testimony may not have influenced Granley, but it did have an impact on the legislators. After the hearing, one of the staff offered to help Kathy and CJ contact the ACLU to press a legal case against their school district.
Prior to this, I figured the ACLU, what the heck, all they can do is tell me no, Well, the next thing I knew, I got a return phone call, and we had a great lawyer from the ACLU.
What do you think about that, Tony?
I'm glad that Roxanne got it, because those are kind of the ones that scrubbed the whole place out piece by piece. And look at that picture of that chandelier. It's just like it's scared. I could fall for a second. It's great.
Just 2 days before the grand opening, Roxanne and Linda got a call from a neighboring businessman about their homosexual agenda at the Latonia.
What happened on the phone call?
I said, if you listen to people like Diane Granley, I said, you're welcome to. I said, you know what?
we're trying to do something wonderful for the community here. And I said, I want to know what Diane Granley has done to the community. Yeah. He said, yeah. I said, she's always on a witch hunt about something.
Did you say that?
Yes, I did.
The negative messages sting so bad that it takes probably 100 positive to keep you on track when it's that hateful.
After Kathy and CJ's case about discrimination at the high school got attention in the community, the local college brought in a gay Christian performing arts group from Pittsburgh to help people see things from a youth perspective. Somehow, I managed to get CJ and Pastor Miklos to attend.
I hope that our performance puts a face to gay Christians and puts a face to gay people. There's a lot of people that don't know things about gay people and they have the stereotypical assumptions of gay people.
What you just said about stereotypes, is that reversed at times as well?
As far as gay people having stereotypes about straight people,
yeah, my stereotype straight people as dressing badly and captured us, and we became friends. I'm sorry that part of the reason you're going to school is to silence us. Not good. Under any circumstances.
How did you come around with it?
That's the only thing I can tell you.
I guess that she's been thinking about it.
That's why. At times, we all get stereotyped, don't we? Huh? Sometimes we're not so bad as what our first impression was.
you know, there are people who don't care what the status quo. And even if they listen, they have seen you at work and they have seen everything you've done.
I know, but we got a double down against us.
I know you don't, but you have to not let this take away from what you worked so hard for. Please, put on your face and say, you're not going to do this to us. And make this just be as wonderful an event as it can be. And it's going to be. Who are you saying? Latonia! See? That's what we need.
I was telling you that you and Roxanne have been working sometimes 18-hour days getting this done. Because there's many weeks now.
But it hasn't been us by ourselves. We've had a lot of people helping, and if you're looking now, there's an army up there helping us get the room ready.
Because I love Roxanne and Linda so much. That's the only reason why.
People are coming through to let us know.
Listen to this. The Latonia Square Bowl features one of the biggest chandeliers in the United States. That maybe is what comes something.
As the grand opening of the Latonia approached, Roxanne and Linda could count on the support of their close friends. But it wasn't clear whether the community at large was ready to accept them.
I think this community just kind of rejects people without even knowing who they are.
I mean, it's nothing personal, okay? It's just, how can I say it? I guess I'm old-fashioned.
I walk into somewhere and I see two men together, two women together, I stare, you know, but 10 years ago when I was with my wife, people stared. Now, I don't get that stare. So, I mean, it changes over time.
People are getting a little more accepting of it, but not a lot. I don't know why I suddenly just, changed my mind. I don't think it was as sudden as it seemed. People have to confront those issues because those people are neighbors.
Some of the people around here are so, I don't know, closed-minded. You know, they want their life, they want everybody to live the way they want them to live, and I guess I was partially thinking about that too. Till I talk to you. This is small town America. This is where we are.
And I think when people do speak out here, they will be surprised by the support that they get, not by the other stuff.
Okay. Clutch all the way to the floor. Left foot. That one? Yeah. With your left foot. Okay. And don't let it out. Go right to the throat sharp. Now keep it down and put it in reverse. It's a whole new experience in the world here. Take it around. It used to change.
Hey, remember when we used to play out in your backyard almost every day? Those were good times.
After 2 years, Kathy and CJ, with the help of the ACLU, finally reached a settlement with the school district that included a promise of comprehensive anti-discrimination training. CJ and I drove over to the high school to meet Kathy and the ACLU lawyer. They were observing the training to make sure it included sexual orientation. We had to drive my car because CJ's $150 special had already been scrapped. And when you stop, touch in. If you're in gear, touch down. All the way to the floor. Touch, man. Every time you stop, you gotta use the car.
So, how did it go? I wish they could have had this in-service training program 2 years ago. Maybe we could have avoided all of these problems. I was very pleased. Let's go to the restaurant.
Hey, dude, let me hear your comments. What do you think of that? That's awesome. I want to find out if he has more programs set up. Like same thing as this or different ones or...
It's taken us 2 years, but it's a step that I never thought would happen.
Quite a journey for you also.
Yeah, I'm just a little back hills mom. But it will keep me in that place. Even if my son moves away from this area, which he'd like very much to do, I'm not going anywhere. I'm still going to be here. Still going to stand up against the bigots until they wake up and see the world for what it is.
vision and the energy that people have here to bring this alive. It's exciting.
Chandeliers are gorgeous.
Yeah. I can't wait to see it lit up. Thank you all for coming this evening. This is a fantastic night. When you start on a large project like this, you need to celebrate some mile markers. But what's exciting to me is watching what's happening throughout Oil City. It means a lot to me to see all these faces, to see all these people who are behind this project. And it hasn't always been easy. And I think I'm going to have to turn it over to Rox right now. My partner, Roxy. Okay. All right. 1, 2, 3. We actually had imagined that for a long time.
Just seeing the community's reaction to that just made it all worthwhile. We love this whole thing and we're fixing it up. We want to turn it into something viable and economically reasonable for Oil City, but in the same token, we're giving something back to the city.
It's all about being able to be ourselves without somebody questioning every motive we might have.
I think I'm an agenda with our lives.
We come against the strongholds of sin in this city in the name of Jesus. And we tear those strongholds down in the name of Jesus. Father, I thank you that there is an army of believers ready to take this city for Jesus Christ.
Diane? Diane? I just wanted to ask you one more thing, Diane.
It had taken me a long time to get there, but in that moment, as Diane was treating me like I didn't exist, I finally started to see that battling with her wasn't a useful way to help make change in my small hometown. Change was starting to happen, not through confrontation, but because of people who decided not to leave like I did so many years ago. People who had the courage to start living their lives just a little more openly. And because other people in the community were willing to meet them halfway.
You know, there have been times when I'm like,
What do you think that?
you know, and, you know, I'm at a different place with that now. I mean, I really respect how you see the world, how it's made you into the people that opened us to happen the way you have. So.
You know, a lot of times we're afraid of the unknown. And the unknown question.
You can talk about the issues, but the reality is that there are people behind there that we need to be sensitive to and try to look at their perspective and where they're at. And, I mean, the benefit of the whole thing, I think, is that we have a friendship. You know, hopefully we're growing as human beings, you know, through it all. Okay.
Do you see my older intake? Are you seeing I'm fusing? I can't say how much of a color person it looks like. Huh? $4,388.68.
Oh yeah, I remember we done. Where did you get that kind of loot? Off of that there, what do you call it? ACLU thing? Give it a minute. You know it. Can we go for a run? If you want to. Take it easy. I went from being a jock, an athlete, a basketball player, baseball player. Then I turned around to, I was a queer, I was a faggot. I was no longer the guy that dislocated your shoulder in football practice. I was just a sissy because of what I think looks hot. And whatever I think looks good just automatically makes me into a little fairy, but it doesn't. Because I'm still me, and I'll always remain me. I'm not going to change.